Hello, welcome to the Corvallis Business Network podcast. And we're on episode number 5. I am Scott Kemp with Cinemax Solutions, a member of the group for the last 3 years. And I'm here, I've got a very special guest, Dr. Jason Young, who has been with the group for, well, since its very beginning. You literally founded the group with Marty Fulford, and we thank you for being those founders. You've brought a lot of people into BNI. Appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah, it's been fun. And thanks for that introduction. Yeah, 10 years. And we started in a little teeny tiny room, and now we've seen over 100 members. So that's great. So
that's crazy. And how much business has the group passed over the years?
Over $6 million.
Over $6 million. Over $6 million. That is crazy if you think of it.
Well, and I'm, me personally, I was looking at my numbers not too long ago, and I'm in 6 figures for both giving and receiving. So,
oh, that's awesome.
6 figures a couple times over, actually. So, yeah.
I would imagine.
It's been very lucrative.
So I know that you've given out a lot of referrals to the members of the group, and we all appreciate that and appreciate you. So,
well, thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you too.
So today we're going to be talking about the power of one.
Yes.
And we've kind of subtitled this the BNI game.
Yes.
And what exactly does that mean, the BNI game?
It's a great question. It's actually one of the topics when you're going through like the new member passport. That's what they call it, is the BNI game. And so this is something that I've trained on a lot. There might be people who are sitting down watching right now who have had this exact conversation with me. But there's a concept called gamification. Are you familiar with that?
Making something into a game, right?
Yes,
to make
exactly.
it either funner or more likely you're going to do it. Or
exactly right. Yeah. So people do this for all kinds of things. Parents do it with their kids. Like, it's time to clean up this room.
Who can pick up the room the fastest?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
who can shoot toys into the toy box and things like that. So yeah, and we do it with ourselves. Like if we want to lose weight or get in shape, we have like apps to track, how many miles have I walked, or like what calories have I eaten. So this is just something that's built into us as people. Things are more interesting if we can make a game out of it. Mm-hmm. And so BNI, smart folks, they found a way to make BNI a game. And so the game is played surrounding this concept of the power of one. So first of all, the power of one is it's actually the power of 5 ones, right?
Right.
There's you want to average 1 meeting a week, which good news. Mm-hmm. There's like 1 meeting a week.
Yeah, it's easy to do, right?
Yeah,
just come.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to make a goal to, at the minimum, be giving 1 referral a week. Mm-hmm. You want to have 1 one-to-one a week. Right. You want to do 1 continuing education unit. And then the other one is not per week, it's per month. Right. But you want to have 1 visitor, somebody who could come and join the group, visit per month. And so that's kind of the goal, is to hit all 5 of those targets. And if you do that, then the way that we keep score is with traffic lights. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we'll see those put up in the meeting, and there's green, there's yellow, and there's red. Okay. And so people like that because people like keeping score, right? Mm-hmm. I used to coach kids sports. And when they're really young, like they always do stuff like, hey, we're not keeping score. Just everybody get out there and have a good time. But all the parents are sitting on the sideline, and you bet they're keeping score, right? Because if Johnny scores 3 goals, we're gonna know about it. So everybody loves that. And so that's the way that we keep kind of score, is green, yellow, and red. And so people who are in the green are averaging over 70 points, right? And people who are in the yellow are averaging between 65 and 50 points. And then anybody below 50 is in the red. Mm-hmm. And you get the points by averaging 1 for each of those 5 categories over the course of the month.
So I think you get 20 points for each of those 5 categories.
Exactly.
And those
right.
add up to 100.
Yeah, exactly. So if you get, if you're like perfect across the board, you're hitting all those averages, you're going to end up with 100 points. Right. Because you'll have 20 for each category. The math works out. We don't need calculators and stuff like that. You can use AI to check this now.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
I'm not
really
sure
cool.
I'd do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you ever see an AI try to tell you how many R's are in strawberry?
No.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Oh, geez.
It gave you the wrong number. It's like, oh boy. And these things are driving our cars around.
I think that's the subject of another podcast. So yeah, so it's a fun game to play. And I mean, is it really fun? Are people like going out giving referrals and wee? free. I don't know that they are, but I'll tell you what, one of the core values on there is recognition. That's the one.
Yeah.
And the thing that's nice about the power of one, actually, it hits on a few things because it definitely hits on giver's gain, right? It keeps us giving. Accountability for sure, right? Because we keep track. Building relationships. So there's a couple things in there where you have to have quality relationships to make them work. So you're building those relationships when you're doing one-to-ones. Let's see, lifelong learning. So you got to get a continuing education unit. Traditions and innovations.
This will count as a CEU, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Podcast.
And we can get this as a one-to-one. No, it's not a one-to-one. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in another podcast too. And then the recognition is a big piece. And so we recognize people who are doing well. They're in the green. So here's the secret about this, because I've been in this for 10 years. And our chapter has typically been one of the top performing chapters in the region whenever it comes to traffic lights, because they don't just look at this in our chapter, but you look at it regionally. So other chapters compare themselves to each other.
That's right.
And so whenever we have like our regional meetings and stuff like that, people who have been in the green a lot, they get recognized. Or the chapter might get special recognition if a certain percentage of us are in the green. Typically, it's if your chapter has above half the people in the green. So we kind of hit a turning point. I'd say it's probably like 5-6 years ago, where we just had this aha moment that everybody who joins BNI, we talk about the power of one and the importance of doing these 5 things. And the reason it's important is it's not arbitrary. These are the things that are proven to help people have success in their chapter. But we realize that everybody agrees to do this. And if you're meeting that bare minimum agreement to just do one of those things, that's what we all signed up for. But for some reason, if you're doing those things, then you're seen as the elite of the elite in BNI. And so we reached a point where we figured out, you know what? Everybody should be in the green because everybody agreed to be in the green. Yeah. And so that's really the thing, is every chapter should have everybody in the green. So why doesn't every chapter have it? Well, for one part, some chapters view it as these are the high achievers instead of these are the bare minimum. But that's not the only thing the game is good for. It's also good as a diagnostic tool. So, I'm in healthcare, and we want to see signs and symptoms of when somebody isn't feeling well. So sometimes where somebody is in the traffic lights, it gives us some early indicators of this is somebody who needs a little bit of help, right? So if somebody has been in the green consistently and now all of a sudden they're in like the bottom part of the yellow, that's a good chance to, reach out to that person and find out things like, are you getting like what you're looking for out of your membership, right? Are you receiving referrals? Are you getting closed business? Maybe they're having some struggles in their life. None of us are immune from like having loved ones that get sick, or, maybe there's trouble with your business. And there's reasons sometimes that people's attention gets pulled away from that. And one of the nice things about the BNI game, the power of one, traffic lights, whatever you want to call it, is that it gives us a good indicator of when like there's somebody that might need a little extra help to get to where they need to be. So
and in a previous episode, Jesse and I were talking about how the first year of his BNI experience, he was continuously asking for business cards. I need people doing business cards. And he was making $3 per order. And they found out quickly, well, it wasn't so quick. It took him 6 months to a year that wasn't a winning strategy. And so by maybe seeing that in his numbers, maybe he's becoming a little disillusioned, but he had a mentor that helped him out and said, you need to ask for your higher dollar value stuff. And so
that's a really great point, because it just reminded me that I have a couple employees that I need to order business cards.
$3, Jesse, coming your way.
Here it comes.
Big
Shushing. Yeah, count that referral.
Yeah.
Who gets the referral, Scott? You or me?
No, probably.
Yeah. So
okay, you have these points. How do you know who has what points?
Well, that's a good question too. So we publish these every month, and they get shared in meetings. Sometimes in the agenda, we've had a point every week in the meeting where we put up those traffic lights and we see. Sometimes it's a little hard for visitors to understand.
How do we know how many points you have? Meaning, how do you input the numbers?
Oh, yes. Okay. Now I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So yeah, that's the thing too. So, like I mentioned before, people have their ups and downs, and sometimes it's really exciting and fun and easy to do BNI. And other times it's like, it feels like it's the same thing, different day. Mm-hmm. And so usually when people start sinking into the yellow from the green, it's not because they're not doing the networking, right? If you're doing these things, these core values and everything like that, then, they reward themselves. And so people do them. Mm-hmm. But if you don't track them, then, there's no points for that. So putting the information in the app is super important.
Our BNI app, we go there, we put in, I did this many CEUs this week. I met with this person. I gave a referral. Mm-hmm. So obviously the attendance is tracked automatically by the leadership team. Mm-hmm. And visitors are also tracked kind of automatically too, right?
Yes. And you bring up a good thing about the attendance, because one of the things that happens is because it's not like an all or nothing on the points for the category. You don't get like 20 points or 0 points. Just based on how close you are to hitting that mark, you might get 10 points or 15 points or 20 points in that category. Right. So one of the things that's really common is people look at the attendance one, and they might see that they're at 96% for attendance. But they're like, wait a minute, I've never missed a meeting. Like, how come I'm at 96%? Mm-hmm. And maybe they'll go to the membership committee or something. They'll say, like, I had a substitute at this meeting, so I should get 100%. So the rules of the game for traffic lights is a little bit different than, our membership committee type attendance rules. So every time you have a substitute, that actually doesn't count as a full attended meeting.
Right. What's it, like half a day or something?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it counts as half a meeting, basically. Yeah. Which, if you're going to be gone, definitely get a substitute. But and if you have a substitute, it doesn't put you in jeopardy of like having your category open up or not being able to participate in the chapter. But the goal in BNI is not to have a substitute every time you show up. And right.
So or don't show up.
Yeah, exactly. So so I think that's why they did that a long time ago, is they wanted to reward people who are actually putting themselves in the room. So if you find that like your attendance number is not 100%, but you've always had a substitute or yourself there, that's why. And I think the other thing that's good to mention is that these things aren't, it isn't just a 1 month snapshot that we're looking at. We're looking at 6 months.
That's right. It's a rolling 6 months, right?
Rolling 6 months. Yeah. And so you're looking at basically how you've performed over those months. And so after a while, like if you had a substitute and you want to be at 100%, that substitute is going to roll off. It's just going to be a few months.
Yeah. And you got to be a little careful, like things like CEUs, where maybe you binged and did 10 in a week.
Yeah.
And that bumped your numbers way up. And then for the last 2 months, you haven't been doing much. And that 10, so at the end of the 6 months, it rolls off.
Yep.
All of a sudden, boom.
Boom. Yeah. You crash.
And it takes a long time to build it up for the exact same reason, right?
Yeah. And so I've told people, look, if you want to get to 100% of the referral category, all you got to do is give 24 referrals this week. And you're at a solid 1 guaranteed. If you were at 0, you want, you just get 6 visitors to the next meeting and boom, you're at 1.0. But it is that level of effort that's needed if you're really trying to move from like the red to the yellow or even the red to the green, which is where everybody should be moving. Just know that it's not just going to be a matter of, hey, I did one of each of these things this month, and so I should be back on top. It's not going to happen in 1 month. If you do one of those each month, in 6 months, you're going to be at the very top, right? Which actually, in my opinion, that's a better way to do it. Because like you talked about, the massive action where it's like, hey, I'm going to do a bunch of them. Eventually, when that falls off, you're going to be like, oh shoot, I'm back in the same spot.
Yeah.
And you really want to make good habits instead of like massive action. And so, it just helps you be a better.
I don't know if this is a BNI wide thing or if it's just our chapter, but I know you couldn't present if you were in the red. So if you were at
That is just our chapter.
60 points or below, I didn't know.
Yeah. So we have a rule, kind of an agreement in our chapter that people who are in the red, you kind of lose some privileges basically for being in the red. So for example, if you're in the red, you're not going to hold a leadership role. And that's like consistently in the red. So if you're in a leadership role and, you hit the red, and trust me, I've been every single color. There's even a gray, and I've been there. We don't talk about gray, which is like you have the traffic light, and then like the gray is what the traffic light is built out of. I've been that before, right?
I remember those days too.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I know, and this is another subject, is you weren't entering your numbers.
I wasn't entering my numbers. Yeah.
You were doing a lot of the work.
I was doing all the work. Yes.
But you just were not. Now, why is that a bad thing?
Why is not entering the numbers a bad thing, or why is being the gray a bad?
No. Why is not entering your numbers, even though you're doing the work, maybe you're doing the referrals and you got visitors coming in like crazy, but you're just either too lazy to enter in the numbers, or why is that a bad thing?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, first of all, why it happened. So, and this is really embarrassing because I was the mentor coordinator while I went to the gray. And that's that's really bad, right? Isn't that terrible? I'm supposed to be helping people
show them how to do it. And you're like,
and that was really hard. I was, but like I said, how it's an indicator of how people are doing sometimes. I really needed help at that time, and it wasn't just I needed BNI help. I needed help in my life. Like I was having some struggles in my business in terms of. Some of the staffing and things like that. So I was having some significant challenges there. That was really
during COVID times, right?
Let's see, was it during COVID? I can't remember. It might have been
on the Zoom meetings. It was like the elephant in the room.
Oh yes, I do. Yes, it was. Yeah. So me personally, I was struggling, and business was. I was just overwhelmed with a lot of things, and so. But if you know me, if you know my personality, I never stop networking, right? I'm always referring to people and things like that. But for me personally, in my life, I was struggling and I needed help. And so my numbers hit the tank. I stepped away from that leadership position because it didn't feel like integrity to be trying to help other people fix their stuff when I didn't have mine together. But you know what happened is the people in the chapter that I'd really built really good relationships with, they came and they got me. It was pretty awesome. Like they showed up and they're like, "Hey, we're doing a 1-to-1. We're going to sit down. We're going to do a 1-to-1, and you know what? You're going to put it in your phone right now." And I had people who were checking in with me, and they're like, "Hey, I know that you sent somebody to me. Put it in, right?" And they gave me reminders, and so that was it was incredibly helpful, and it was really touching too, and it deepened those relationships. And if we didn't have an indicator like this, it would be really difficult for anybody to know that I needed help, right? And so that's kind of one of the nice things. So if you don't put your stuff in, I guess I'm not really making a plug for if you need help, stop putting your stuff in. That's not what I'm saying. But it really is a good indicator of where somebody is in the whole process. And so, it's if you don't put those numbers in, then you don't make it to the precious green. But the biggest thing is it's not just about you making it to the green. It's about the chapter's goals too, because it's not just that those numbers go towards your traffic lights. Those numbers get put up so that if somebody is coming into the room for the first time and they're wondering about BNI, they're trying so hard. I tell people when I went to my first BNI meeting, I was trying so hard not to get scammed. Like I was just like put up all the defenses, like do not scam me, right? But so people come in with a lot of skepticism, a lot of worry. We've had people who come in, like we had a member who said just last week that he was not sure if he was going to have a business the following week when he came to his first BNI meeting. Right. So people are really looking for something when they show up. And one of the biggest things that they see is when we put up this big wall of statistics, right? These numbers where it's like, this is how much closed business we've done. This is how many 1-to-1s we've had. This is how many referrals we've passed. For people, that's the proof. That's the proof that this works. But if we don't enter those numbers, There is no proof. And so we go through the work of inviting people who will not join because they don't see the value in it. So enter those numbers. It's not just about getting in the green. It's really about creating opportunities and more business for everybody in the group when you do that. So
Right. So for those 5 categories, let's talk about why each one is important, why we track it. I mean, it's not just out of the blue that we're tracking, it's because it's important.
Yeah.
So why is attendance important?
Attendance is important because if you're not in the room, I don't know who you are. And if I don't know who you are, it's impossible for me to like you.
Yeah.
And if I don't like you, I don't trust you. And if I don't trust you, then you're not getting any of the other things in there, especially the referrals. And so, and if you don't show up, then I wonder, why am I showing up? Mm-hmm. Right. And so the attendance is a commitment that we all make to each other, that we're in this together. And
I think part of it too for this tracking is, since BNI only allows one person per category, it keeps people accountable. Like if you're not performing, we're going to get somebody else who can perform in that category, because you can't just take a category and then not show up and not do anything.
Well, and there's several categories in BNI that traditionally are like really lucrative. Like, for example, just about every BNI chapter on earth has a real estate agent, because that is a very important spot in the chapter. So if we had a real estate agent that was only going to show up every other week, it's really sucking the air and the life out of the room, because we need a rainmaker, right? And so, but really with any category can be that, right? Anybody can be really, really successful in BNI, but man, if you're not there, we can't do anything.
Okay, so let's talk about referrals. Why is it important we're tracking referrals?
Well, that's one of those social proof things. So that's one of the things that people are looking for when they come in. And in BNI, we look at referrals differently than other networking organizations. So other networking organizations are cool with leads. We don't like leads where it's just like, hey, Scott, you take photographs at weddings, or, oh, you do videos. I know somebody who is getting married, and so you might want to go talk to him, right? That's a lead, and that's garbage. It's like, I should be warming that up for you and making the introduction and closing that business. So when people understand what one of these referral numbers represents, it's a really, really powerful thing. And so, and also it's a way that we hold each other accountable. Sometimes we've had people in the group that don't give referrals. And so then whenever it's like time to consider,
when we're renewing them, if we're considering it.
Yeah, do we renew them?
We look at those numbers and say, you're not really doing much you're receiving a lot, but you're not really giving it out.
It's not giver's gain, right? And it's not consistent with the ethics of what we're doing. The other thing too is we track that because some people don't understand what it means to give a referral, or what even counts as a referral. Like, I know that we've had people in the past who they would only count a referral if they knew that it led to closed business, which that's not what it is.
Right.
Like if I give you the opportunity to do business with somebody, that's a referral. Now, whether that person chooses to do business with you or not, I don't have any control over, but I shouldn't wait till somebody is actually using your business to count the referral. So we're counting opportunities to give people a chance to do business.
So let's talk about visitors. Why are visitors important to track? And
oh, Scott, duh, right? I know that but visitors are the only way we grow. And honestly, of all the things that we list, this is actually the most important. And the reason is because a chapter that is not bringing in new people is a chapter that is not thriving. They're not. Right. It's not going to survive.
Because you'll always have attrition as far as people will leave.
Absolutely.
You've not only got to replace those, but you're trying to grow and go beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need access to more people. And so that involves different people coming into the room with their contact spheres and who they know. And so you have to have visitors. If you don't have visitors, you're not getting new members. And depending upon the conversion rate for the chapter, that might be like 10 visitors to every one new member.
Right.
And then if you want 10 visitors, that might mean that you have to invite 100 people not you
invite
individually,
10.
Yeah.
So the numbers are for every person you get to join, there's probably 100, 200, 300 actual invites to go out.
Yeah.
It's just a numbers game.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a later episode. But
okay.
So one-to-ones, why is that important to track, and what's that doing for us?
Yeah. So one-to-ones are important to track because, man, there's some introverts, right? Like, people don't believe this, but there's a big chunk of me that's pretty introverted.
Oh, like, me too. Used to be.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows you're introverted, but yeah, it's like,
stop looking at me. Stop looking at me.
And this one is challenging for introverts sometimes because it's like, geez, I gotta, you want to put me in a social situation, but it's important to track because, it's one of the most critical skills that you can have in BNI is the ability to sit down and talk about your business and listen about somebody else's business. And the one-to-ones are important because they make all the other things happen, right? Here's a secret about BNI meetings. BNI meetings are not for the members. They aren't. Like, somebody coming in might look at what's going on and see people talking about their businesses, and they're like, this is where the referrals happen. That is not where the referrals happen. All the best referral sources, referrals I've given, all the best relationships in terms of passing referrals back and forth were born in one-to-ones.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I've had, I'll listen to somebody's presentation for months.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a one-to-one and like, oh, I got a referral for you.
Yeah.
It's like, that's crazy.
And it transforms you from being like an audience member, a listener, to when you sit down with somebody and you talk with them, you get to find out about their life and their business and why are you doing what you're doing. You become an advocate for them, right? Like, it's like, I want to go out and find you some business, because I know what this means to you. So yeah, so the meetings aren't for the members. The meetings are for the visitors to see kind of what some of the fruits of our relationships are. The real networking happens two places. It happens in the open networking at the beginning of that meeting, and then mostly it happens in the one-to-ones.
Yeah, we definitely need to do an episode on the one-to-ones and how to make the most out of that because there's a lot of power in those.
There is, and there's a lot of like good ways and right ways to do it. So, yeah.
And the last one is CEU units.
Yes.
That's a tongue twister.
Yes.
Continuing education units.
Yeah, units. Yeah, continuing education units. Yeah, it's like the.
Oh yeah, you're right. CEU units.
It's like the ATM machine.
CEUs.
Right?
How's that? Is that better?
Automated teller machine. Yes. Yeah. So CEUs. Now, my favorite job that I've ever had in BNI is education coordinator. I think that I've been education coordinator 4 times,
and you're good at it.
And I love it. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. And part of the reason is because it gives me an excuse to go and research things and learn more about BNI, learn more about networking, learn more about how people think and everything like that. And really, the CEUs are what sets BNI apart from other networking groups. Like, we'll say things like
training. I mean, is how do you do this? There's a lot to it.
Absolutely.
Somebody just cannot come into BNI and immediately be successful without a lot of information. And that's what we're trying to shorten with these podcasts is that learning curve and the time to be an effective member and to receive and give quality referrals.
Yes, definitely.
So,
and it's the biggest thing that sets a BNI apart from other networking organizations. What I mean by that is if you and I decided, you know what, let's leave BNI, let's start our own networking group. Let's not do that. But say we decided to, could we start a group that is category exclusive? We absolutely could, right? Could we start a group where we're using an app to track all of our stats and everything? Yes, we could. Could we start a group where we encourage people to do one-to-ones, where we encourage people to bring visitors and all these things? Could we use a very similar agenda? Yes, we can. And there's people out there who have. They don't do as well as BNI. And the reason is because they lack one thing, and that is institutional knowledge.
Right.
And so the resources that are available to you through BNI about networking, about making relationships with people, and it's not just education about here's how you do BNI. It's education about here's how you do business. Right? Here's how you meet other business owners. Here's how you plan for your business. You grow your business. And so there is 30 years of institutional knowledge.
And not only is it knowledge that they could learn anecdotally, but because they're tracking the numbers, they can correlate that to their messaging and what worked. How did we get those numbers up? It's because we started doing this or that.
Yes, they've transcended the art of networking, and it's now also the science of it, because we have the data. They got the data, right? And so that's one of the things that I really love about it, and it's just growing. When I started in BNI, there was hardly any podcasts. There was like a few podcasts, and then there was one thing that like hardly anybody knows about anymore is the books, right? There's these books that Ivan Meisner wrote. Yeah, there's books.
What are books?
Yeah, right. They're made out of.
Does it have scroll bars? Can I scroll through it?
If the words are too small, you just do this and they get bigger. Yeah, so there's these books that Ivan Meisner wrote, and you get 5 CEUs for reading one of the books. Nobody knows about this because, now we have podcasts and articles and all kinds of things, and these conferences and meetings and webinars, and so there's so much more that there's these books that are kind of forgotten. But when we started, like that was one of the big responsibilities of the education coordinator was you keep the library, which is you would carry around this box of books.
You bring the books in, right?
Yeah, and people could check them out. It was like you had a little library. And so I won't say that the books aren't good, but they're largely obsolete because BNI is just bursting with all kinds of resources and knowledge that you can get.
And we're adding to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the thing that's cool and interesting about it is it's such a large organization that we're sitting down and we're doing this podcast and we're not really saying anything new. It's all based on experiences that are similar in a chapter somewhere in Italy or, in Texas. Thank you. For a minute, I could not think of another geographical region of the planet Earth. There was Corvallis and Italy.
Nowhere else.
And that was it. Sorry, Elon Musk. You're going to have to go exploring, I guess. But Texas is the third place on Earth. Yes.
Other states as well?
There might be some. Nobody knows. They haven't been discovered. But I think what I was saying is we're just discussing a common experience that people are having all over the world. And they just need to hear it from a familiar voice or a voice that resonates with them. And so this is something that's been reproduced over and over and over. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Spotify, you can go to websites, and there is so much information that's available. So if we wanted to start our other networking organization, we couldn't duplicate that. Yeah. And the reason we couldn't is because even though people have access to this information, every time they go and they look at that information, they're going to see BNI. They're going to see BNI. And then people are going to be like, why am I enjoying
your rinky-dink outfit?
Yeah. Why do I want to be the guys that are 30 years behind everybody else? And on top of that, I can't go to Italy and go to a Scott and Jason's networking meeting group. I could go to a BNI or I could go to Texas, but there's literally nowhere else in the known universe besides those 3 places.
Oh my gosh.
Holy smokes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for going over these, the power of one. I think that is what makes BNI successful. And, thank you, Jason.
Okay. Did we beat it to death? Did we beat this topic?
I think so. I think this is the longest one we've done so far.
It's a fun game to play. So thank you, Scott.
All right. Thank you. Until next time, happy networking.